Very warm welcome to women's rights campaigner Kellie-Jay Keen.
Thanks so much.
First of all, I want to just get your general take on the situation in Downing Street. What do you think? Do you think Boris should stay or should he go?
If he stays, that's a terrible thing, 'cause he's done some silly things. And if he goes, there is nobody else I would like to replace him. It'd be nice if he could have been a Conservative over these last few years. But we've had this Tory government for quite some time. And the things that I campaign about, they've done absolutely nothing about. In fact, they've just completely abandoned women's rights. So I think all of this is a bit of a distraction. I think there's massive things going on in the world. I'm not that interested about these, musical chairs they're having it in Downing Street.
Yeah, the thing is, though, about Boris's administration, about this Tory government, is you're right, they haven't been conservative in many, many ways, certainly not financially. But also I think they haven't been conservative or they haven't been proper in terms of social and cultural affairs. And what I'm talking about is, they've been very poor in kicking back against wokery. And I think and they said that they would. They said, we're going to get to grips with this. It's pernicious. It's bad for our society. And from your point of view, Kellie-Jay, wokery leads into this cancellation of women. The fact that the government stands back and lets women be referred to as people with cervixes, people who get pregnant. That they ought to be more vigilant about that. Has that annoyed you about the government? Because it has annoyed me.
Yeah, well, I probably would say 5 years ago, I thought, why have we got a House of Lords in a democracy? And then over the last few years, the House of Lords have really come through defending the word mother in a maternity rights bill, which the Conservative government thought that they could just leave the word woman or mother out of a maternity rights bill. You've also got Caroline Noakes, who I say is one for the blokes, because she is heading up the Women Inequalities Committee. And she was recently on a web chat on Mumsnet. And she basically said women are women, trans women, cis women. She doesn't, these people don't know what a woman is. Surely a conservative value might actually be recognising biological sex.
This leads into one of the stories I want to talk about with you, Kellie-Jay, and that's a transgender barrister who's been a trans woman now for, I think, 11 years. She's 58 years old. Her name is Robin Moira White. She's been nominated, and I know you wouldn't like to call her she, but I not only do I not mind calling her she, but also I have to by broadcasting rules. But I don't object to that, as you know. She has been nominated for Leader of the Year. It's a category in the Women's Influence and Power in Law UK Awards. Do you think she should be included in a category for women barristers?
Good gracious, no. I think he said himself that there are 3 men that call themselves trans. So I can't, it just won't come out of my mouth. I can't, my conscience won't allow it. But he sort of said there's 3 other barristers who are men who refer to themselves as women, and there's one person that's non-binary. I think they thought it was making a point that actually it's no threat to women. But if there's only 3, why is one of them taking the place of a woman on sort of a leadership list? The very fact that we've got women's lists in these sort of jobs is because they're very underrepresented. Now, I don't even know if that's such the case now. I think 38% of barristers are women, and I think it's a really, really difficult job, especially if you have kids and you have to take time out for maternity. So I kind of understand the disparity, but it's just ludicrous. Do you know, there's a Mexican government with a 50-50 male and female represented split. There's not a single actual woman in the 50-50 male and female government. They're all men or men who identify as women.
So what you're saying in terms of Robin Moira White is that they've gone out of their way to find a trans woman to include in the Women's Awards category.
I don't know. I mean, I mean, maybe he said...
What you suspect is that. I would suspect that. I mean, personally, I don't really have much of a problem with her being in this category, up for this award. But, as you say, there aren't very many trans women barristers, and proportionally... it would strike me, my suspicion would be, for woke reasons, they would say, let's get a trans woman in among the nominees. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think sometimes people think that will tick a diversity and inclusion box. When actually what it does is it just inserts a man into a female list. Robin themselves has smeared me all over social media, which I would have thought somebody in their position with their knowledge of...
have you had dealings with Robin Moira White?
I've never directly dealt with him, but he seems to not mind smearing me on social media.
I'm stressing I'm calling Robin she. But also, you know, we always have this discussion. Mm-hmm. I respect your viewpoint, but I don't have a problem calling she. And, you know, I have a sort of slight problem, not in a nasty way, Kellie-Jay, you know that. I have a slight problem with the idea of upsetting her by calling her him.
Mm. Yeah, I'm more concerned with the 3.5 billion women in the world who are gradually being erased by using female language for men. I am definitely going to convince you that I'm right before our time is up, Kevin.
I know you'll never give up trying. But it brings us on to the next story I want to discuss. It's a story that came from last week, but it's one that will interest you. It's this trans woman swimmer. I think over in Canada, isn't it? Or is it America?
Yeah, America.
America. She's called Leah Thomas. And at the University of Pennsylvania, she's in the women's swimming team. And her teammates have said that her presence in the changing room makes them feel very, very uncomfortable. Partly because Leah still has male body parts and they say is still attracted to women. And that makes them feel uncomfortable. They've got a right to say what they feel. And what worried me about this debate was these women who said this, the other female members of the swimming team, said were dismissed as bigots and anti and transphobic. I mean, this is at the heart of the problem, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and to include the last story, what often happens is women or the general public have been convinced that this is a really vulnerable minority. These men that call themselves women, who are predominantly heterosexual men who call themselves women, that we've somehow been convinced that they are a vulnerable minority of people. And that means that they come at the very top of our considerations. When the truth is, often women are the vulnerable person in a space where there is a man with a penis, or even without. But women are the vulnerable people in that scenario. And in this situation, Leah Thomas has shown that he really doesn't care how those women feel. And what's worse is the American Swimming Association and anyone in any position of authority has also decided that they really don't care about how those women feel. And it all comes back to language. If Leah Thomas was still called a man, there is absolutely no way that he would be able to be in women's changing rooms exposing himself, because we would say he was committing a crime.
And the other problem here, of course, it plays into the debate about trans women participating in cis women's sports. I mean, the cis women don't stand a chance, do they? It negates female sports, but birth females, cis females. I don't know the word. Cis women swimmers are going to get thrashed by the trans women swimmers, aren't they? And in other sports.
Quite clearly, because men beat women in sports. However much any woman...
That's why we're better than you, like you see, Kellie-Jay. That's a joke, folks.
We're very good at ribbon twirling or whatever it is that they do on the floor. But this is it. I hate to keep banging this drum, but my whole campaign was formed on the basis of the word woman. And that's because as soon as you allow men to be grouped as women, we forget that they are men, and we start treating them as if there is a really complicated issue with whether or not somebody who calls himself a trans woman will beat women in sports. Well, clearly, because if we just said men and women, nobody would bother having this conversation. It would just be a done deal.
Yeah, as I always say, I mean, I really do. I'm with you on what I really do support you on is that I just think that referring to women as people with cervixes, people who get pregnant, and so on and so forth, I think it's sexist because you never hear men referred to as people with testicles, do you?
No, although there was a doctor actually that did say people with prostates.
Oh well, there you go. Well, you see equality at last. We made it.
Well, the real danger is that there are people that don't understand people with prostates, but do understand man, or don't understand people with cervixes, but do understand women. You know, people who maybe speak English as a second language. And I think it's a really bizarre thing, but we seem to think that inclusion really just means, at the moment, LGBT. When actually inclusion is really grabbing the people on the genuine margins of society and ensuring that they can participate as whole human beings in our society. So when I see a train manager, as I did the other day, in a rainbow lanyard, I'm thinking, but half of your stations are not equipped to allow people with disabilities to travel on the train lines. So I find that sort of virtue signalling of pretending to be including everybody really exclusionary, when actually the people that really need a hand up are not getting it.
Women's rights campaigner Kellie-Jay Keen, thank you so much for joining us. Always enjoy our conversations.